How's everybody doing today? So I see once again, we've had it put into our face that white folks, we are the problem. We're the problem. We're the problem. Our refusal to honestly deal with our history of hatred, racism, genocide is a problem. Our inability to see where the unhealthiness of our culture is the problem. Our inability to see how racism and Christianity all tied up in together is a problem, is the problem. And the biggest problem is that we do not see we are the problem. God bless everyone. Have a beautiful afternoon.
Hey, look, y'all need to stop saying God bless America, pray for America. America is cursed.
There's a reason that America feels cursed. From its beginning to its present, this so-called Christian nation has been drenched in blood, greed, and spiritual filth. What we're seeing today, the chaos, division, addiction, violence, it isn't random. It's divine consequence. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, corruption has appeared on land and sea because of what the hands of men have earned, so that he may let them taste part of what they have done, that perhaps they will return.
So as a Gentile, I'm here to profess, black people, you are Israelites, you are the chosen ones, you are a prestigious people. Your history is in the Bible. In order to better understand why you are Israelites, I'm going to bring forward two witnesses from Deuteronomy 28. And if you're not familiar with it, Deuteronomy 28 outlines the curses of the Israelites for not hearkening unto the voice of the Lord. Now I'll bring forth my first witness from Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So because you didn't keep your end of the covenant, follow the law, statutes, and commandments, you've been cursed. Let's take a look at one of those curses and see if it applies. Deuteronomy 28:66 reads, And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have no assurance of thy life. Now, I don't know about you, I live in America. Black people have no assurance of their life, and it's because you're Israelite.
There's a reason that America feels cursed. From its beginning to its present, this so-called Christian nation has been drenched in blood, greed, and spiritual filth. What we're seeing today, the chaos, division, addiction, violence, it isn't random. It's divine consequence. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, corruption has appeared on land and sea because of what the hands of men have earned, so that he may let them taste part of what they have done, that perhaps they will return. Quran chapter 30 verse 41. America wasn't founded on freedom. It was founded on genocide and hypocrisy. Millions of Native Americans exterminated, their land stolen, their children kidnapped into Christian schools, where they were beaten, raped, and stripped of identity. The same people quoting the Bible used it to justify mass murder. Before the US even called itself a nation, it was burning women alive during the Salem witch trials, projecting its own evil onto others. They screamed about witches while committing acts far darker than any spell. They seek to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths, but Allah will perfect his light. Quran chapter 61 verse 8. What they call purity was actually paranoia, fear, and hatred, the very foundation of their empire. Then came Mormonism, born into the same soil, mixing Christianity with paganism, polygamy, and blood atonement. These were not fringe movements. They shaped US politics and culture, from manifest destiny to God bless America. The nation began to believe it was chosen by God to dominate others. That's not faith, that's arrogance. The Prophet Muhammad warned, arrogance is rejecting the truth and looking down on people. Sahih Muslim 91. And what's more arrogant than a nation claiming God gave it the right to rule the earth, just like Israel is doing right now, and its people, the chosen ones, the very same people running America. Just look at the culture. The United States produces more serial killers than any other country in history. Over 3,000 known cases. Hollywood glorifies cannibals, serial killers, and demonic acts. It celebrates sin as freedom. Even Netflix has turned human depravity into entertainment. This isn't coincidence. This is a mirror, a reflection of the nation's inner sickness. Then the hearts of those who disbelieved became hardened after that. like stones or even harder. Quran, chapter 2, verse 74. The same obsession with horror, violence, and death runs through its politics, its movies, and its streets. When a nation normalizes evil, Allah removes mercy from its heart. The American empire didn't stop at home. It expanded, invading, occupying, and toppling over 80 countries, from Vietnam to Iraq, from Iran to Libya. Millions of lives lost in the name of freedom. Their military doesn't defend, it dominates. They maintain over 750 military bases all across the world, controlling oil, currency, and governments through blood, and do not commit abuse on the earth, spreading corruption. Quran, chapter 2, verse 60. And yet they call Muslims terrorists.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Genocide Stories. You know, a lot of scholars, a lot of theologians have warned the United States of the big fall that is coming. You know, people took it for granted, right? People took it for granted because what the Western civilization doesn't understand, especially perfect example, the United States, is what is called fairness or equality. Some people out there term it. When I talk about fairness and equality, I'm talking about the treatment of black people, God's chosen people, right? The Hebrew Israelites. All these groups of people that were treated badly, that were, you know, all these crazy things that happened to black people. And the ancestors cried. The ancestors were sad. But one thing remained eminent, that one day there'll come a day when America will face its own judgment. And the judgment, it's not only about black people, but it covers the entire the entire people in the black community. But look at the life in the United States. There is something so much off about it. And you all agree with me. Some people argue that it is because the oppression of God's chosen people. That's why the United States is facing its wrath. And to some degree, this is true. Because look, we are seeing a lot of white folks complaining more than black people. I'm not saying that black people are not going through hard times. They are going through, don't get me wrong, right? But what I'm trying to say is that we are seeing a lot of white people that the system protected, that are right now coming out and talking about how life is so much hard, how there's so much disillusioned by everything that is going on in the United States. And we will all agree to that. And we have seen that enormously for the past 9 months, 10 months ago. We have seen, like we've never seen before, we have seen white people come out and complain about not even affording the basic needs that they need to afford. But why is it that all these consequences is following white people that are living today and not white people that did? The colonizers and the enslavers and all these people. Why is this not, why is this not happening to them, brothers and sisters? That's just a question that I'd let you, think about it, ponder around it, and let me know what you think about it. So I'm gonna let the video roll, and then I'll be coming back, and then we'll be having a discussion in regards to this. So brothers and sisters, stay tuned. I'll be back with my thoughts in regards to this.
The biggest terror organization on earth wears a suit and waves a flag. Islam forbids everything America profits from. Interest, pornography, gambling, intoxication, exploitation, and oppression. So they attack it. They bomb Muslim lands, invade other nations, steal resources, and brainwash their citizens to fear Islam. They demonize hijabs, but glorify nudity. They ridicule prayer, but worship money. They want to deceive Allah and those who believe, but they deceive none except themselves. Yet they perceive it not. Quran, chapter 2, verse 9. America doesn't hate Islam because it's violent. It hates Islam because it's pure, because it exposes the filth that they live in. Behind the American flag lies another flag, the Zionist one. For decades, Zionist lobby groups like AIPAC have dictated US foreign policy. Presidents come and go, but the alliance to Israel never changes. Billions of dollars are sent yearly while American cities decay, poverty rises, and children die from fentanyl. You see, many of them taking the disbelievers as allies. Evil indeed is that which they have sent ahead for themselves. Quran, chapter 5, verse 80. The same elite networks, banks, media, Hollywood and tech promote degeneracy, destroying faith and manipulate minds. Their goal, to make humanity forget God so they can play God. Have you noticed America's obsession with monsters, vampires, demons, and the apocalypse? It's not entertainment, it's confession. Its myths mirror its crimes, from witch hunts to cannibals to mass shooters. America creates monsters because it is one. It projects its own darkness onto screens so people never see it in the mirror. And thus we made the oppressors allies of one another because of what they used to earn. Quran, chapter 6, verse 129. Just look at America now, divided, decaying, drowning in drugs, shootings, suicides, and debt. Its people no longer know right from wrong. They mutilate children, glorify sin, and call it progress. Its youth reject God, its leaders worship wealth, and its military serves Zionist greed. When we intend to destroy a town, we command its affluent ones, but they definitely disobey therein, so the world comes into effect upon it, and we destroy it with complete destruction. Quran, chapter 17, verse 16. That is what's happening right now. America is being destroyed, not by enemies abroad, but by the rot from within. The United States calls others terrorists, but it has terrorized the planet. It preaches morality while funding genocide. It claims to defend freedom while silencing truth. It builds idols of liberty while worshipping satanic systems. And every empire built on blood ends the same way. Rome, Babylon, Pharaoh, and now Washington. Do not think Allah is unaware of what the wrongdoers do. He only delays them for a day when eyes will stare in horror. Quran, chapter 14, verse 42. America's downfall is not political. It's spiritual. The curse it unleashed upon others has come home. You cannot mock God, slaughter nations, and poison the earth without consequence. The land cries out, the blood speaks, and justice is coming, whether through history or through divine wrath. And perhaps then the world will see that Islam was never the enemy. It was the truth they feared all along. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon you and your families.
I don't know if anybody else can see this, but I've always said this to myself, and I've said this to a few people in my family. I think this nation is cursed actively. And you know, we can, you know, I'm getting into the spiritual stuff. I'm getting into my word. I'm becoming a Christ follower. But something in me tells me that this nation, the land that we are sitting on, will never recover. And we can see this, I mean, firsthand. Look at the unrest in our nation. Look how our people have never been okay. Our people have never been at peace with ourselves. Our people have never been in eternal peace with itself. This nation has always been at war, whether it's been at war with another nation, whether it's been at war with ourselves. Since they signed the Declaration of Independence, we have seen some sort of resistance or violence attached to the name of this nation. This nation cannot rest, and it will not rest. You can't acquire a nation the way we acquired it and not expect to feel something, right? They always tell us, right? These sayings that transcend our generations, they even transcend some of our bloodlines, right? When you think of what goes around comes around, karma's gonna come get you. Karma's a bitch, right? Like why are all these karmic sayings always in rotation, right? Why are all these spiritual sayings that basically whatever you do is going to come back, and you are going to reap what you sow, right? And this is just, these are all saying the same thing. Bad deeds do not go unchecked. Bad behavior does not go unchecked. The people in this nation will never be at peace internally because of what happened on this soil, on this land has not been addressed. And people think that, okay, well, I can do something bad and I just die and it'll just go away. Your family lives with that. Your ancestors live with that. We're seeing that today. They are living with this unrest inside of them. This is why this nation has always been at war. 11 wars. 11 wars. How much blood do you think this nation has shed? We've dropped 2 nuclear bombs. We're the only nation that has used nuclear weapons. This nation is violence. All that violence, all that bloodshed, all them tragedies these dudes thought they could do to these people on this land, whether it was the Native Americans first, then move over to chattel slavery, right? The transatlantic slave trade. Then we still got the Mexican-American War. These people were fighting everybody in proximity. It's proximity with this nation. This nation will kill if it could. This nation has a violent tendencies, has violence in the spirit. There's unrest in the spirit, and it will not go away until there is acknowledgement and there is atonement. We don't know how these spiritual things work. That's the cool part. We don't know how they work. I'm just simply observing how this system works. I don't know how it works, though. The inner workings, that's for God to know, right? Or the creator, or whatever you believe in. But whoever you believe in, whatever I believe in, are most likely the same person or thing or being. And they are not going to let this nation roll around in money before it has to roll around in its filth. And that's what this nation is doing. It's going to take people to understand that even though they weren't the ones who did it, someone's going to have to step up and take the bullet for this one. So, they have not talked about anything that has happened on this soil. All they care about is money, 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 money. This nation is destined to fall.
So we're here, we partake, and it's time for us to know who we came from and who we are, and who the 12 tribes of Israel are. And why it's very important, because you've got African Americans, quote unquote, black people walking around who in the majority have no knowledge of where they came from. They don't know what their culture is, what their tribe, what their identity is. And so they've been given a false culture, right? But they've still swagged it out. To this day, African Americans are the most influential culture in the world. Period. Music, mathematics, the way we talk, the way we sing, the way we swag, style, soul, grace, the move. Everyone has partaken of this. Period. And they deny it, but it's the truth. It's the truth that not only did they influence all the culture and give people bring the cool to the world, because that's what the Hebrew people did. Like, they were supposed to be a priestly nation. The people are like, yo, what is the Hebrews doing? We should follow what they're doing, right? So the same thing in America. They built America. You know what I'm saying? America was built on the back of slaves, period. That is the curses of the Bible hitting them, okay? Because they turned away from their righteous Elohim. They denied the very Son whom he sent. And they got pushed all the way into West Africa, Nigeria, where all the slaves were taken from. Modern-day Ghana, on a slave ship, on a slave map, used to be called Judah. It was the kingdom of Judah, because the Jews lived there, and that's where all the slaves came from. Judah, Ghana, Nigeria, and other places too. I'm not saying, but we're saying the majority is the Jewish people. And the reason that all this happened to them and continues to happen to them, right, is genocide and different things that people are fighting for. You know, why all these protests are happening, why the race war is happening in the first place. It's not a race war. This is biblical. And those who have understanding know how to supersede it and go beyond it and begin to see through this whole trash that they call a race war, whites against blacks. It's not about that. We're trying to see the truth. This is biblical. And why this is even happening in the first place is because what happened in the beginning and how the Hebrew people did not live according to the Most High's commands. They did not keep the commands. They turned their back on him. They walked away from him, and they dropped the ball. And so now here we are with the Jewish people in the midst of us as African Americans, and no one knows. Some people do know. There's a whole movement. It's a whole movement. But the point being is that we're here to share the good news of that, and then we get to go back and read the prophecies and realize, whoa, what's really going to happen? And now I get it. This has always been about him making the Jew, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes all black men. Now, I will also preface with this. Separating people by skin color didn't happen until the 1600s, and was based off of white supremacy. period. We didn't even separate people into colors until the 1600 AD. But the moral of the story is that Jesus himself was a black man. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were black men. Okay? The 12 tribes of Israel, black men.
When white people in the United States balk at the idea of paying reparations to black Americans who descended from slaves, they disagree with the Bible. Reparations are a form of compensation or restitution made to those who have suffered injustice, particularly those in cases of racial inequality, discrimination, and slavery. The idea of paying reparations to black Americans is not a new one. It has been a topic of discussion for decades, if not centuries. However, it has gained renewed attention and support in recent years, following the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement and the growing recognition of systemic racism in American society. As a Christian, I believe that reparations are not only a matter of justice and equity, but also a reflection of God's character and values. In the Bible, we see numerous examples of God's concern for the oppressed, the marginalized, and the downtrodden. From the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt to the ministry of Jesus among the poor and the outcast, we see a consistent theme of God's love for those who are on the margins of society. One of the key biblical principles that underlie the idea of reparations is the concept of restitution. In the book of Leviticus, we see God commanding the Israelites to make restitution to those whom they have wronged. Leviticus 6:1-5 says, "If anyone sins and commits a breach of faith against the Lord by deceiving his neighbor in a matter of deposit or security or through robbery, or if he has oppressed his neighbor or has found something lost and lied about it, swearing falsely in any of all the things that people do and sin thereby, if he has sinned and has realized his guilt and will restore what he took by robbery when he got it by oppression or deposit that was committed to him, or the lost thing that he found, or anything about which he has sworn falsely, he shall restore in full and shall add a fifth to it and give it to him to whom it belongs on the day that he realizes his guilt." This passage emphasizes the importance of making restitution to those who have been wronged, and not just restoring what was taken, but adding to it as a form of compensation. This principle of restitution can be applied to the issue of reparations to black Americans who have suffered centuries of enslavement, discrimination, and systemic oppression. Another biblical principle that supports the idea of reparations is the concept of Jubilee. In Leviticus 25, God commands the Israelites to observe a Jubilee every 50th year, during which all debts are forgiven, all slaves to be set free, and all property to be returned to its original owners. This was a radical idea of economic justice designed to prevent the accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of a few, and to ensure that all members of society had equal access to resources and opportunities. The idea of Jubilee can be seen as a model for reparations in that it seeks to address the root causes of inequality and oppression rather than just treating the symptoms. By forgiving debts, freeing slaves, and returning property, Jubilee seeks to create a more just and equitable society, one in which everyone has the opportunity to flourish. As a Christian, I believe paying reparations to black Americans is only a matter of justice and equity, but also it is a reflection of God's values and character. Through the biblical principles of restitution and Jubilee, we see a model for how we can address the historical and systemic injustices that have plagued our society for far too long. While the issue of reparations is complex and contentious, I believe that as Christians, we have a responsibility to seek justice.
You know, the idea that America is under a curse for oppressing black people emerges from a long theological, historical, and moral discussion that connects traditional injustice to divine consequences. Now, in many religious traditions, as you understand, which include Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, these nations have seen as collective moral actors, meaning that when society commits systemic harms against a vulnerable people, it accumulates a spiritual debt. In When we get to look at all these conditions that are happening in the United States, we come to learn one thing. America's treatment of black people for more than 400 years, and that's slavery, lynching, segregation, redlining, police, terrorism, mass incarceration, and social economic exclusion, is seen not just as accidental act, but it is seen as deliberate, a sustained violation of God's moral order. Thus, when some white Americans now say that the nation is cursed, they are acknowledging that the country's ongoing suffering, political chaos, and moral decline, violence, division, poverty, addiction, and institutional collapse may be the fruit of seed planted centuries ago through racial oppression. Because for centuries, black theologians, including figures like Frederick Douglass, Hendrick McNeil, Turner, Bishop Richard Allen, and later Martin Luther King Jr., they warned America could not escape the divine judgment while mistreating the very people who built the country. These leaders consistently used biblical parallels like ancient Egypt, Babylon, Rome to explain how empires that prospered through injustice eventually fell under the weight of their own wrongdoing. Right? What is new today is what white America themselves are beginning to articulate the same idea, that the nation's decline is not random, but connected to unrepented sin against black people. This admission signals a growing awareness that a country cannot maintain greatness while practicing systemic dehumanization against millions of citizens who contributed to its wealth, labor, and moral conscience. Now, the concept of a divine curse rises when natural consequences begin to look supernatural. America is facing crises that appear interconnected. We all agree to that. Economic instability, mass shootings, family breakdown, depression, anxiety epidemics, substance abuse, infrastructural decay, political fantasism, and the erosion of truth. While all these can be explained sociologically, many Americans, particularly white Christians, are interpreting them spiritually. They ask how a nation that once saw itself as God's chosen, a city on a hill, could deteriorate so rapidly. Some have concluded that America's original sin, slavery, and anti-black racism placed the nation on a trajectory of a moral decay. In their view, the curse is not a magical spell but a moral law. A society cannot thrive while denying justice to those it has wronged. There is also a belief that black people, being the most consistently oppressed group in American history, hold a unique moral and spiritual position in God's eye. Yes, even outside religious circles, many scholars argue that society's treatment of its own most marginalized population reveals its true moral character. And if America's foundational violence was directed at black people, and if that violence continued in new forms after emancipation, then the nation's moral foundation itself was corrupted. When white people now say America is cursed, they are indirectly admitting they cannot build a prosperous nation on exploitation, terror, and lies, and expect God or even history to grant you peace, stability, or greatness. A deeper layer of curse is the failure of repentance. A nation in the Bible that avoided destruction did so through collective acknowledgement and collective action. America, however, has consistently refused to repair the damage inflicted upon black people. There was no land redistribution after slavery, no compensation for stolen labor, no national apology for lynching, no structural redress for segregation, no serious reform after mass incarceration. Well, instead, the country doubled down on denial, revisionism, and resentment whenever the subject of reparation or racial justice arose. Thus, from a theological and ethical perspective, the curse persists because the sin was never confronted. Unrepented injustice becomes a spiritual poison that flows into future generations. When white Americans admit the existence of curse, they are also indirectly acknowledging that political power, global dominance, were obtained through subjugation of black bodies. For centuries, many white churches preached a theology that sanctified racism, portrayed white people as God's chosen and black people as cursed or inferior. Now, as those institutions decline, as the younger generations leaves the church in record numbers, some white Christians see this collapse as part of the judgment. A spiritual system built on lies cannot survive. The acknowledgement reflects a reckoning not only with America's political failure, but with Christianity's own complicity in a racial oppression. They are essentially saying, we misused God's name to enslave God's children, and now we are paying the price. And lastly, what I would like to say is that the growing recognition of a national curse signals a profound shift in conscience. White Americans are beginning to understand that fate of the nation is tied to the liberation, dignity, and repair of black people. This represents the collapse of centuries-long myth of white innocence. One that myth dissolves, the country is forced to confront its greatest fate, accountability. Whether one interprets America's turmoil as divine punishment, historical karma, or social backlash, the message remains the same. A nation cannot rise while the people who built it remain unhealed. Manifested in chaos, division, and decline will continue. In this way, the acknowledgement of the curse is not doom, but a call to moral transformation, repentance, and a national rebirth. So brothers and sisters, please let me know what you think about this video. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Jintok Stories. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.